Hey guys, Super Horror Bro Mike here, and in today's video I want to talk to you about something a little bit more serious than the usual video. You've probably seen on many people's channels recently, we've had these videos going up talking about YouTube having a problem with age restricting videos, and the reason I'm talking about this today is because it does need to be brought to more attention, but also because it's affected me greatly over the past few months, and you may not actually know this. Many of my videos, I think now about 5 or 6 over the past 3 months, have been age restricted. And this basically means that unless you're over the age of 18, you can't watch said videos, and basically you need to be signed into a YouTube account in order to view them. YouTube will also kill any engagement with that video because advertisements can no longer run on it, so they don't want to promote it because it's not making them any money. So the video basically has a thumbnail that's completely blurred unless you're signed into your YouTube account, so you won't actually be able to see what that video is of, which is really weird. That's not something YouTube used to do, but it's something they've started to do recently. So the video already looks a bit sus to people, and then to add insult to injury, they can't even click and watch the video unless they're signed in, and even when you do click on the video, it actually prompts you in some cases to say, this video may contain controversial themes, are you sure you want to watch it? And then that kind of makes you feel a bit weird about watching the video to begin with, so it's a really bad thing to have your video hit with. So when we get one of these age restrictions, there's one of two things we can do. We can either leave the video up so that it just stays there and it's age restricted, or we can appeal to YouTube. Now, if you request an appeal, you basically put in a little blurb saying, this is why the video is fine in my eyes. You send it off and it's supposed to get a human review. However, something with this human review seems a little fishy because I sometimes send a video that's like an hour long to be reviewed, and then 5 minutes later, I'll get the review rejected and they'll come back and say, yeah, we watched the video and it wasn't safe and we agree with our original estimation of your video. But that doesn't make any sense because there's no way they could have watched the entire video, and most of the time in a horror game, stuff doesn't happen in the first few minutes of a video. So it's like, you didn't watch it, did you? You just kind of rejected it straight away, pretty much. Other times though, I have had appeals put through, and these seem to be the ones where they've taken a bit longer and a few hours have passed and then they've got back to me. So I feel like sometimes humans do review these videos, but a lot of times I think it's just a bot that just denies it. So they need to be more consistent and transparent with this and say, if we have given you a human review, here is what they found, the exact timestamp of what went wrong in your video. Now obviously age restriction is very important on YouTube, the reason being that anyone can upload anything to YouTube. But when we're talking about video games, and video games are 10 a penny, a lot of them have a ton of gore. Just think of something like Doom, where every 2 seconds you're basically sawing a demon's head off or something, but in a very cartoony, video gamey way. Stuff like this really doesn't need the age restriction, and in past years, they haven't actually been age restricted. In fact, the only video games I can think of that have been age restricted on my channel up to this point are stuff like Doki Doki Literature Club, because that game did have some very, very hardcore themes to it. But mostly, if I'm just playing a regular horror game, this has never been a problem before. Limited ads are another thing, sometimes videos can get limited ads, and that's kind of one of the things that you just run the risk of getting as a horror YouTuber, because some videos will need to have ad restrictions placed on them. But age restriction is something that really should only happen to the most hardcore of content on YouTube in my opinion. While it does need to be there, and maybe even needs to be there for certain games, I mean look at a game like Manhunt for example. If you guys remember that game, or Outlast might kind of ring a bit truer to you. Those games have a ton of super brutal, gory, realistic violence in them, and maybe something like that, yeah, you age restrict it. But a lot of the age restrictions I've received, I got one for Madison, which isn't even an 18 rated game, at least not here in Europe, it's actually rated 16 and above. I actually appealed that and that one went through, so that one was okay. But I had one for Hungry Lamu, if you guys remember that. That was like a super cartoony game, even though it was really, really basic visually, it was like PS1 era style graphics with a pixel art style, and really shouldn't have been rated, in my opinion, any higher than a teen rating. They for some reason slapped that with an 18 rating. So you can never tell these days, and it seems that YouTube are targeting videos that have hanging bodies, dismemberment and decapitation in them. That's something I've learned from my own luck with these strikes, and also from speaking to other YouTubers in the community who cover horror games. So guys, if you're making videos, just make sure none of this stuff is in them. You've probably noticed with some of my recent videos where they've had stuff like hanging bodies and stuff, I've just put a massive black box over the screen just to completely blur out anything. And it looks awful, and I don't think it's good for you guys to not be able to see what's there, but at the end of the day, I have to make these edits in order to please YouTube and not get my video demonetized and age restricted, because obviously there's no point me making a video, spending all day working on it, if then nobody's going to be able to watch it and I can't make any kind of revenue from it, as this is my full-time job. So it's, you know, it's demotivating when this keeps happening. So one of the changes you will keep seeing on the channel until this is remedied is that I will be censoring certain games. Another problem is that I won't be able to cover certain games. I'm going to have to see how this plays out, and currently I'm going to try and cover as many games as I can, but my series such as The Quarry that I recently played, a lot of that was age restricted due to the content, and it just seems like going forward, you know, there's going to be certain games I have to really look at and say, can I cover this or not? So if you're asking why I haven't covered certain horror games and they're the more violent kinds, it might be just because I feel like it's not worth the risk, you know? It's not worth the risk of running into another age restriction on a video and then people not being able to watch the series unless they're signed into YouTube and they're over the age of 18. I just don't want to have to kind of run the risk of that when there's a lot of other horror games that are safe to play on the platform. The other problem that we have with this age restriction policy is that, you know, age restriction isn't anything new, it's been on the platform for many years, but it's become far more prevalent for horror games recently, and so that's why we need some kind of guidance from YouTube as to what we can and cannot show in videos going forward. Or perhaps they just roll back the aggressiveness of the algorithm if it's their bot identifying these different videos and it's not meant to be. Maybe they need to tinker with that. The real problem here though is that it's very inconsistent. I've been flagged for videos that were age restricted where other creators haven't, which meant that the other creators still had their videos monetized, still had their videos being able to be seen by everyone, but mine weren't. And then my videos, I've had videos where they've been fine, and I've heard from other creators that their videos got struck with age restriction when mine were okay. I've even appealed certain videos and they've been rejected, and then another creator has appealed the same scene in the video and theirs has been fine. And I don't want to name names because we've had private discussions about it and stuff, but you know, this is just something that is happening obviously, and it's not good. We need more consistency and everybody to be treated equally on the platform, you know, one rule for all. And if there is favoritism going on, that does need to stop because that isn't good, and obviously it's demotivating. You know, if you're a smaller creator especially, and you've got like a massive creator that their videos are always going to go through fine because YouTube just wants to keep them happy. Then you got a small creator that's getting, you know, penalized for all this stuff all the time. That's going to make them feel really bad. And yeah, I think we just need a little bit more across the board consistency from YouTube on this stuff. Just enforce a rule for one video, it goes through for everyone else's, and work from there on it. So what can we do to fix this? Because there is a way to fix this. As I said before, age restriction is important, censorship is important to a degree on YouTube, because we've got to keep kids safe, you know, even though there is a YouTube Kids app, we know kids do watch the regular YouTube app, and so these children shouldn't have access to just everything. You know, the age restriction is important, and I do want to make that clear. I'm not trying to have a go at YouTube for enforcing their age restriction policies here, I just think there's a better way for them to do this. I think the best solution, and I've heard this from other people, I saw this in 8-Bit Ryan's video that he made recently on the subject, and it was a very good point, just to have a timestamp like we do with copyright strikes, so we can see exactly where in the video the offense has taken place. So if they've seen there's a picture of a hanging body at 20 minutes 32 seconds until 20 minutes 54 seconds, they can say, oh, trim this out and then your video's fine. Or blur this out, that would be the best solution. Just blur the screen, because there is actually an option to blur in the YouTube editor, and then the scene is safe. If they can start doing this, where they tell us where the problem lies, and then if we edit it out or blur it, they lift the age restriction, then it's not really going to be a problem anymore. So just offering that for the age restriction would solve the problem almost completely. So if they can implement this and then give us better guidelines for, you know, what the problem actually is, like if it's, you know, a decapitation, for example, just put that and say, oh, this is what we don't like about your video, just cut this out. I think that would help a lot. But yeah, guys, that's about it. You know, that's everything. Now we've talked about what age restriction is, we've talked about how it's affecting horror creators more recently and in a very inconsistent way, and we've also talked about how YouTube can solve this problem. So hopefully they see all these videos being made about the subject, they look at it and they think, yeah, we should do something about this. Maybe our bots are being overly aggressive flagging videos. Maybe we should get better with our consistency and treating all creators equally in this regard, and they might make some actual change happen. But before I throw out this video, I do want to say that YouTube has given me a lot, and so I don't want to be too brutal on them, you know? I'm not trying to like really shout at YouTube, I'm just trying to say there's some problems with it at the moment that I think could be fixed. So, you know, I do appreciate YouTube as a platform and all it's given me. At the same time, you know, it's not a perfect machine currently, so let's help it get there.